me two skirts, one short, one long as the bottom of a gown, and I
Stop scrolling right now, because the story you're about to hear will shatter everything you thought you knew about one of Hollywood's most legendary love affairs. For 50 years, millions of people have watched Robert Redford and Barbra Streisand in The Way We Were and wondered if their on-screen chemistry was just acting or something much deeper and more dangerous. Today, after decades of speculation, whispers, and unanswered questions, we finally have the truth. The silence that followed Robert Redford's death wasn't just mourning. It was the sound of a secret being buried forever, and one woman holding the key to a mystery that has haunted Hollywood since 1973. But that silence has finally been broken, and what Barbra Streisand revealed will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about love, fame, and the price of keeping secrets in the spotlight. Picture this moment. It's 1972, and two of Hollywood's biggest stars are about to be thrown together in what would become one of cinema's most passionate love stories. But behind the cameras, something even more explosive was happening, a real-life drama that would make their fictional romance look tame by comparison. Robert Redford didn't want to make The Way We Were. He called the script shallow, the character underwritten, and his role nothing more than a pretty prop for Streisand's story. He was right, and everyone knew it. But Streisand saw something in him that others had missed. Not just the golden hair and piercing blue eyes that made him America's heartthrob, but a complexity, a darkness that she believed could transform their on-screen romance into something unforgettable. She begged, pleaded, and used every connection she had to get him in that movie. Producer Ray Stark told her to move on and find another leading man. Director Sidney Pollack hesitated, but Streisand refused to give up. She knew that without Redford, her vision of Katie and Hubble would never come to life. What she didn't know was that getting him would change both of their lives forever. When Redford finally agreed to do the film, he saved it from disaster by forcing rewrites that deepened his character and sharpened the conflict between these two opposites. But something else happened during those script sessions, something that would blur the lines between fiction and reality in ways that neither of them expected. The moment their first scene together began, everyone on set knew they were witnessing something special. Not just great acting, but a connection so electric it seemed to leap off the screen and grab audiences by the throat. The chemistry between Katie Morosky and Hubble Gardner wasn't just believable, it was dangerous. But here's what audiences never knew. Redford was terrified of that chemistry, and he took extraordinary steps to protect himself from it. During intimate scenes, he wore two athletic supporters to create a barrier between himself and Streisand. He insisted she wear more clothing during bedroom scenes. He even refused to deliver certain lines because he couldn't bear the thought of Hubble appearing vulnerable or imperfect. Was this just professional caution, or was Robert Redford protecting himself from something much more personal? The crew members who were there whisper about the tension they witnessed, the long looks between takes, the way Streisand would light up whenever Redford entered a room. Biographer Robert Hoffler later claimed that Streisand's feelings for Redford made him deeply uncomfortable. She was infatuated, and that infatuation was bleeding into every scene they shared. The result was a movie that crackled with barely contained passion, leaving audiences wondering if what they were seeing was acting or something much more real. The film became a cultural phenomenon, earning 6 Oscar nominations and winning for its iconic title song. But its true legacy was the questions it left unanswered. Were Katie and Hubble's stolen glances just scripted moments, or were they watching two people fall in love on camera? For 50 years, both Redford and Streisand deflected those questions with diplomatic answers and professional smiles. They called each other friends, praised each other's talent, and carefully avoided the one topic everyone wanted them to address. But their co-stars told a different story. Jane Fonda, who worked with Redford in 5 films, admitted she was always in love with him. She later revealed that he did not like to kiss and was often in a bad mood on set, suggesting he might have had an issue with women. Was this behavior the result of a man struggling to maintain professional boundaries while dealing with intense personal feelings? Meryl Streep described her crush on Redford during Out of Africa, calling their famous river scene a sex scene in a way. She didn't want the day to end, despite hippos lurking in the water. For someone as controlled and professional as Streep, that admission revealed just how powerful Redford's effect on his leading ladies could be. But it was always Barbra Streisand who seemed most affected by Robert Redford's presence. Even decades after The Way We Were, she would speak about him with an intensity that suggested their connection went deeper than mere professional admiration. When news of Redford's death broke at age 89, Hollywood mourned the loss of an icon. Tributes poured in from directors, actors, and politicians. But one voice remained conspicuously silent. For days, Barbra Streisand said nothing, and her silence became louder than any tribute. Fans began to speculate. Was she too heartbroken to speak? Was she protecting secrets that were meant to die with him? Had their real-life love story been so intense, so complicated, that she couldn't find words to express her loss? When Streisand finally broke her silence, her words were more revealing than anyone expected. She didn't just remember a co-star or praise a professional colleague. She remembered a man who had touched her life in ways that 50 years couldn't diminish. Every day on the set of The Way We Were was exciting, intense, and pure joy, she wrote. Those weren't the words of someone remembering a work experience. They were the words of someone reliving the most passionate time of her life. She described their differences with the intimacy of someone who had studied every detail of his character. He was the outdoorsman who thrived in wide-open spaces. She was the city girl who joked about being allergic to horses. Yet those very differences that should have kept them apart were what pulled them together, just like Katie and Hubble. But the most haunting detail in her tribute was her memory of their last lunch together. No cameras, no crew, no audience watching their every move. Just two people in their 80s, talking about art and promising to exchange their first drawings. It was a moment of simple intimacy that revealed just how deep their connection had remained after all these years. That lunch wasn't about nostalgia or publicity. It was about two people who had shared something so profound that it transcended the decades, the marriages, the separate lives they had built. They were still Katie and Hubble, still opposites who couldn't stay away from each other, still bound by something that was stronger than time or circumstance. He was one of a kind, Streisand wrote, and I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to work with him. But between those lines, you could read the real message. The gratitude wasn't just professional, it was personal. The love wasn't just fictional, it was real. For 50 years, The Way We Were has made audiences cry because it tells the story of two people who love each other but can't make it work. Their differences are too great, their worlds too separate, their timing always wrong. They have one perfect moment together, and then life pulls them apart forever. Now we know why that story felt so authentic, why those final scenes between Katie and Hubble still break hearts decades later. It wasn't just great acting. It was two people saying goodbye to something they could never fully have, something that was too complicated for the real world, but too powerful to deny. Barbra Streisand's tribute to Robert Redford wasn't just remembering a co-star. It was a final love letter to the man who helped her create one of cinema's most enduring romances. The man who taught her that sometimes the most profound love stories are the ones that exist in stolen moments, in the spaces between what can be said and what must remain silent. The way we were, the way they were. And now we finally know that sometimes the most beautiful love stories are the ones that can only be fully told after the final curtain falls.